You're
Picture this.
absolutely wonderful
You're
tonight.
8 months pregnant, sitting on a curb with everything you own in 2 broken suitcases, while your husband's mistress waves at you from your bedroom window. Your mother-in-law just announced to the entire neighborhood that you're a gold digger, a thief, and a liar.
I told you never to come back here.
200 phones are recording your humiliation. You're going into labor.
Margaret, it hurts.
No one will help you. This is how Sarah's nightmare began.
It's
But
all right,
here's
Sarah.
what they didn't
We're here
know.
now.
Sarah had
Let's get you
2
up.
billionaire brothers who'd been searching for her for 15 years.
Okay,
And
we're
when they
almost
finally
there.
found her,
I need you to
they
keep
didn't just
breathing
rescue
exactly
her.
as I showed
They
you.
destroyed
One more
everyone
big
who
push
hurt
now.
her in the most spectacular way possible. What happens when you throw away a woman you think has nothing, only to discover she has everything? What happens when a society wedding turns into an FBI arrest? What happens when the people who tried to break you end up in prison while you receive the Presidential Medal? This is the true story of how one woman went from being trash on a curb to changing 3,000 lives. If you love stories about karma hitting hard, about justice being served ice cold, about victims becoming victors, you need to hear this entire story. Trust me, the ending will give you chills. Hit that like button if you're ready for the most satisfying revenge story you'll hear all year. Drop a comment telling me, have you ever been underestimated by someone? And subscribe so you never miss these stories. Because karma is always watching. Now let's begin at the moment everything fell apart. I was 8 months pregnant, sitting on the curb of the most expensive street in the city, with my entire life packed into 2 battered suitcases, while my husband's mistress waved at me from my bedroom window. The lace curtains I'd picked out myself, the window I'd cleaned every Saturday morning, the room where I'd believed I was loved. The entire neighborhood was watching. It was 2 o'clock on a bright Tuesday afternoon, the kind of perfect spring day when everyone was home. Phones were out, cameras recording. Mrs. Barbara Clayton stood on her wraparound porch with her iPhone held high, zooming in to capture every humiliating detail. The Martinez family, Elena and Carlos, and their 6-year-old daughter Sophia, stood frozen in their driveway like statues. Elena wouldn't meet my eyes. Mr. Robert Wilson paused his garden hose mid-spray, water pooling on his lawn. Even the teenage boys playing basketball 3 houses down had stopped their game, ball forgotten on the concrete, all of them staring at the pregnant woman being thrown out of Wellington Manor. My mother-in-law, Margaret Wellington, stood on the mansion's grand front porch like a queen pronouncing judgment from her throne. She wore her signature Chanel suit, the cream-colored one with gold buttons that cost more than I used to make in 6 months. Her perfectly coiffed blonde hair didn't move in the breeze. Her pearl necklace, 3 strands of perfect spheres worth $40,000, caught the afternoon sunlight. Her icy blue eyes swept across the crowd of neighbors with satisfaction, making sure everyone was watching, making sure everyone would hear what she was about to say. She wanted witnesses to my destruction. Her voice carried across the manicured lawns and luxury cars, across the tennis courts and swimming pools, designed to be heard by everyone on Wellington Drive. This woman, she began, pointing at me like I was evidence in a trial, came into our lives with absolutely nothing. No family, no education, no class, no breeding. She was a waitress, serving tables at the Wellington Club when my son made the terrible mistake of noticing her. I tried to stand up from the curb to defend myself, but another contraction hit. Not the real thing. I knew that much from my pregnancy books. Braxton Hicks contractions, practice labor. But it hurt enough to make me gasp and double over, one hand pressed to my swollen belly. She trapped my son with this pregnancy, Margaret continued, her voice rising, making sure every single neighbor could hear. We don't even know if the baby is Christopher's. She's been sleeping around, according to sources. She's been stealing from us. Jewelry, cash, family heirlooms worth thousands and thousands of dollars. We gave her everything. This roof over her head, the Wellington name, a life she could never, ever afford on her own. And this right here is how she repays our generosity. The neighbors gasped on cue. Someone, I think it was Mrs. Henderson from number 42, actually yelled, "Shame on you!" I tried to speak, to defend Miranda, but my voice came out as a broken whisper. I didn't steal anything. I love him. We're married. I'm carrying his child. No one heard me, or if they did, they didn't care. You have exactly 1 hour to remove yourself from this property, Margaret said, her voice dropping to ice-cold precision. 60 minutes or I am calling the police and having you arrested for trespassing on private property. That's when Victoria appeared. Victoria Ashford, the woman who destroyed my marriage, stepped through the front door of my home. She wore a silk robe that I recognized because I'd admired it in a magazine once. She'd probably found it in my closet. Her dark hair was perfectly tousled, like she'd just gotten out of bed, which I realized with a sick feeling she probably had. In my bed, with my husband. She wrapped her arms around Christopher, and he let her. My husband, the man who'd promised to love me forever, the father of my child, stood there like a coward while his mistress kissed him on our front porch. Victoria pulled back from the kiss and addressed the crowd like she was giving a press conference. Her voice was confident, practiced, the voice of someone who'd done this before. Christopher and I have been in love for years, she announced, making sure her words carried. We tried to stay away from each other. We really did. We tried to do the right thing. But true love always finds a way. True love always wins. And now we're finally free to be together. Openly, honestly, the way we should have been from the beginning. Some of the neighbors actually applauded. I heard the clapping, heard people murmuring their approval, and something inside me shattered. I sat down hard on my suitcase, unable to stand anymore. The zipper was broken, and I could see my clothes spilling out. The maternity dress I'd worn to my first OB appointment, the sweater Elena had given me for my birthday, the photo album I'd made of my pregnancy journey, documenting each month with belly photos and ultrasound pictures. All of it trashed now, my whole life reduced to garbage on the curb. That's when the real pain hit, a massive, crushing contraction that felt nothing like the practice ones. This was different, sharp, urgent, wrong. I cried out and fell to my knees on the sidewalk, my hands clutching my belly, feeling my baby moving frantically inside me. The concrete scraped my knees through my maternity leggings. Oh my God. Mrs. Clayton zoomed in with her phone camera, getting closer. Oh my God, I think she's going into labor. She's actually having the baby right here. She's faking for sympathy. Margaret's voice was dismissive, scornful. I know her type. Low class, manipulative. Always playing the victim. She's putting on a show for all of you. Don't fall for it. Don't let her pathetic performance fool you. Pathetic is what she is. Absolutely pathetic. But I wasn't faking. Another contraction hit, worse than the first. I felt wetness between my legs and panic surged through me. Was my water breaking? Was the baby coming? I was only 34 weeks. Too early. Way too early. I looked around desperately for help. For anyone. The Martinez family stood in their driveway, less than 50 feet away. Elena, my supposed best friend, the woman I'd helped when Sophia was sick, the woman whose daughter I'd babysat 100 times. She met my eyes for just a second, and I saw guilt flash across her face before she turned away. She physically turned her back on me and walked into her house. Carlos followed her. Their front door closed with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot in my ears. Mrs. Henderson got into her car and drove away, not wanting to be involved. The teenage boys went back to their basketball game, the spectacle over for them. Mrs. Clayton kept filming, but she didn't move to help. She just documented my pain for social media. Not one person moved to help me. I was completely, utterly alone. Another contraction. I heard myself making sounds I didn't recognize. Animal sounds of pain and fear. My phone was in my pocket, and I fumbled for it with shaking hands. The screen was cracked from when I dropped it yesterday in the parking garage. The battery icon showed 5%. 5% left, and then I'd have nothing. But the screen was too damaged. I couldn't see the numbers clearly. Couldn't dial 911. That's when Mr. Wilson appeared beside me. Robert Wilson, 73 years old, widowed, the quietest neighbor on the street. He walked slowly, leaning heavily on his wooden cane, and he knelt down beside me on the sidewalk with effort that clearly pained his arthritic knees. "Here, child," he said softly, his weathered hand touching my shoulder with gentle kindness. He handed me a bottle of water and his cell phone. "Use my phone. Call whoever you need to call. Take your time." His kindness, the first kindness I'd been shown in months, made me cry even harder. Tears poured down my face as I took the phone from him with shaking, trembling hands. I had to think. My mind was blank with panic and pain. Who could I call? I had no family, no friends apparently, no money, no car. Christopher had made sure of all of that. And then I remembered. 2 years ago, when I was still trying to find information about my past, I'd searched through foster care records. It took months, cost me $200 I'd saved from grocery money, but I'd found it. A phone number, an address, information about my brothers, Alexander and James Morgan, the siblings who'd been ripped away from me when I was 8 years old. I'd carried that piece of paper in my wallet for 2 years, never brave enough to call. What would I say? Would they even remember me? Would they want anything to do with the little sister they'd lost 20 years ago? But now I had no choice. I dialed the number with shaking fingers, each digit taking forever because I could barely see through my tears. The phone rang once, twice. A man's voice answered, professional and guarded. Alexander Morgan speaking. Alex, my voice broke. Is this Alexander Morgan? From the foster system? Do you remember a little girl named Sarah? Sarah Morgan? I think you might be my brother. I'm so sorry to bother you. I don't know who else to call. There was a pause, complete silence on the other end. For a horrible moment, I thought he'd hung up. Then his voice came back, and it was completely different. Raw, shocked, emotional. Sarah? Sarah Morgan? Is that really you? Oh my God, is this really you? Yes, I sobbed. It's me. It's Sarah, your sister. I'm so sorry. I know it's been 20 years. I know you probably don't remember me. I know this is crazy, but I need help. I need help so badly. They threw me out. I'm pregnant, and they threw me out on the street, and I'm having contractions, and I don't know what to do, and I have no one else to call, and... Sarah, stop, breathe, listen to me. His voice was commanding, taking charge immediately. Where are you right now? Give me the exact address. Right now, Sarah. The address. Wellington Drive, I gasped out between contractions. 87 Wellington Drive. The Wellington Estate in Fairmont Hills. I heard him say something to someone in the background. Another male voice responded, urgent and excited. Is that her? The second voice said. Is that Sarah? James, is that our Sarah? Sarah, this is very important, Alex said, his voice steady and calm despite the emotion I could hear underneath. Do not move. Do not go anywhere. Stay exactly where you are. Do you understand me? Stay on the phone with me. We're coming to get you right now. We're 20 minutes away, maybe less. We're coming, baby sister. We're coming right now. You remember me? I could barely speak. Remember you? His voice broke. Sarah, we've been looking for you for 15 years. We never stopped looking. Private investigators, database searches, everything. We've spent millions trying to find you. Stay right there. We're coming. I promise you we're coming. So I sat on that curb for 15 agonizing minutes. Mr. Wilson's phone pressed to my ear. Alex talking to me the whole time, asking me questions, keeping me calm, telling me stories about when we were kids, things I'd forgotten, things that proved he really was my brother. The neighbors continued to watch and whisper and film. Margaret remained on the porch, arms crossed, looking satisfied with her victory. Christopher and Victoria had gone back inside the house. Through the windows, I could see them in the living room. They were drinking wine, celebrating. Then I heard them, the sound of powerful engines approaching. Different from the luxury sedans and SUVs that normally drove through this neighborhood. Deeper, more powerful, threatening. Everyone turned to look. 2 vehicles turned onto Wellington Drive, and the entire street seemed to hold its breath. White Rolls-Royce Phantoms. Not just white, but custom pearl, white with gold trim that caught the sunlight like mirrors. Each car was massive, imposing, worth more than most of the houses on this street. The license plates read Morgan 1 and Morgan 2 in bold letters. The cars moved slowly, deliberately, like predators stalking prey. They stopped directly in front of the Wellington estate, perfectly positioned. The engine shut off simultaneously, and the sudden silence was deafening. The entire street had gone completely, utterly silent. The first car's door opened. A man stepped out, and even from where I sat on the curb, I could feel the power radiating from him. He was tall, over 6 feet 3 inches, I guessed. Athletic build, broad shoulders, the kind of physique that came from having a personal trainer and unlimited time. His charcoal gray Tom Ford suit fit him perfectly. Custom tailored, probably $15,000. His shoes were Italian leather, polished to a mirror shine. The watch on his wrist was a Patek Philippe Nautilus in rose gold. I recognized it from a magazine article about luxury watches. It was worth over $250,000. Just his watch cost $250,000. He had dark hair, perfectly styled, and sharp features that looked like they'd been carved from stone. His eyes were hidden behind designer sunglasses, but when he removed them, I saw eyes that were familiar. Eyes I remembered from childhood, brown with flecks of gold. My brother Alexander. The second car's door opened, and another man stepped out, equally imposing, equally commanding. He wore a navy blue suit, also clearly custom-made, and carried a leather Hermes briefcase that probably cost $30,000. Designer glasses, perfectly groomed. He held a tablet in his other hand. My brother James. They walked toward me, and the crowd literally parted like the Red Sea. Neighbors stepped back, moved aside, creating a clear path. No one spoke. No one dared. And Alex reached me first. He knelt down on the curb, and I saw him completely ignore the fact that his $15,000 suit was touching the dirty concrete. He didn't care. His eyes were only on me. Leon. He took my hands in his, and his touch was gentle despite his obvious fury. Allie, he said softly, using the nickname from when I was little, a nickname I'd forgotten. We're here. You're safe now. I promise you, you are safe now. Alex? I couldn't believe it. James? Is it really you? James crouched down on my other side. It's us, little sister. We found you. We finally found you. And we are never, ever letting you go again. Do you understand me? Never again. I threw my arms around Alex and sobbed. 20 years of pain and loneliness poured out of me. His arms wrapped around me carefully, mindful of my pregnant belly, and he held me like I was precious. Shh, he murmured. I've got you. We've got you. Everything's going to be okay now. James picked up my suitcases like they weighed nothing. He examined them with barely controlled rage. These are all your things? I nodded, unable to speak. We'll get you new everything, he said quietly. Everything you need. Everything you deserve. Then my brothers turned to face Wellington Manor. Margaret stood on the porch, and I saw her confident smile start to waver. She'd been expecting me to leave quietly, broken and alone. She hadn't expected this. Christopher emerged from the house, looking confused and slightly annoyed at the interruption. Who the hell are you people? This is private property. You need to leave immediately. Alex stood up slowly, deliberately. He was taller than Christopher by at least 4 inches, more muscular, more everything. He removed his sunglasses and fixed Christopher with a stare that could freeze water. His voice, when he spoke, cut across the crowd like a blade. Clear, precise, deadly calm. I am Alexander Morgan, CEO of Morgan Capital Group. The crowd's gasp was audible. Morgan Capital Group was legendary, one of the largest private equity firms in the country, $8.2 billion in assets under management. They'd been on the cover of Fortune magazine last month. James stepped forward. James Morgan, Chief Financial Officer. We're Sarah's brothers. Margaret stammered, something I'd never seen her do before. But brothers? But Sarah said, she told us we investigated, we did background checks. You were supposed to be dead or in prison. Alex's smile was cold. That what you told yourselves? Made it easier to abuse our sister? Did it? Easier to throw a pregnant woman onto the street if you convinced yourselves she had no one? We had you investigated, Margaret said, recovering slightly. The records showed you were in the foster system, likely deceased or incarcerated. Sarah told us herself she hadn't seen you in 20 years. Funny thing about investigations, James said, pulling out his tablet. They only work if you're looking for the truth. But you weren't looking for truth, were you, Mrs. Wellington? You were looking for confirmation that Sarah was alone and vulnerable, that she had no one to protect her. Let me tell you what a real investigation finds. He held up the tablet so the crowd could see, projecting the information onto his phone, which he held up high. Margaret Elizabeth Wellington, 68 years old, though you claim to be 58. Your family business, Wellington Industries, currently $34 million in debt, not the $18 million you claim in your public filings. $34 million. You've taken out 7 business loans in the past 2 years. All of them are currently in default. This house, third mortgage, 90 days past due. The bank has been sending foreclosure notices for 6 weeks. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. Mrs. Clayton was getting all of this on video. Margaret's face turned bright red. That is private financial information. You have no legal right to access that. I'll sue you for invasion of privacy. Sue us? Alex laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. Please, by all means, try. But here's the thing, Margaret. We purchased your debt. As of 1 hour ago, every single loan, every single mortgage, every single outstanding bill your family has, we own it. All of it. James continued, reading from his tablet. This house? We hold the note as of 47 minutes ago. Your country club membership at Fairmont Hills Country Club? We own 60% of that club as of this morning. Your bank accounts at First National Bank? Frozen pending fraud investigation as of 32 minutes ago. Christopher stepped forward, trying to look threatening but just looking scared. You can't do this. This is illegal. I'll sue you. I'll take you to court. I have lawyers. Lawyers? Alex's smile was terrifying. You mean the lawyers at Preston and Associates? The firm you've used for 20 years? We bought that firm yesterday. You no longer have lawyers, Christopher. But you do have debts. So many debts. James pulled up another screen on his tablet. He held it up for the crowd to see. Christopher Andrew Wellington, 32 years old. $8.2 million in gambling losses over the past 3 years. Las Vegas casinos, Atlantic City, illegal online poker sites. You've taken out loans from 3 separate loan sharks, all of whom are currently under FBI investigation for money laundering and connections to organized crime. He showed photographs to the crowd. Christopher at casino tables looking desperate. Christopher meeting with men in dark suits in parking garages. Christopher signing documents with people who were clearly criminals. The neighbors were gasping, whispering to each other, filming everything. How did you get those? Christopher went pale. Those are private. How did you? We've been watching Sarah for 6 months, Alex said calmly. We've had investigators following her, watching her, making sure she was safe. We've been documenting everything, every interaction, every betrayal, every lie you people have told. We know everything, Christopher. Everything. I pulled away from Alex, shocked and hurt. 6 months? You knew where I was for 6 months? James looked at me, genuine guilt in his eyes. We found you through foster care record searches 6 months ago. We've had private investigators watching you ever since, making sure you were safe, gathering information before we revealed ourselves. You saw me marry him? I gestured at Christopher. You watched me marry him, and you said nothing? We saw you smile, Alex said quietly. We saw you laugh. We saw you happy, or what we thought was happy. We had investigators watching, but we didn't want to interfere if you'd found a good life. We thought maybe we were being overprotective. Maybe this was real. We were wrong, James said. God, Sarah, we were so wrong. We should have stopped the wedding. We should have revealed ourselves immediately. We made a terrible mistake. But we're here now, Alex said, and we're fixing this. All of it. That's when Richard Ashford arrived. A black Mercedes S-Class pulled up behind the Rolls-Royces. The car was worth about $150,000. Expensive by normal standards, but cheap compared to the cars my brothers drove. Richard Ashford stepped out. He was in his early 60s, with distinguished silver hair and an expensive charcoal suit. He looked like money, old money, the kind of man who'd been wealthy his entire life. He carried himself with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. Victoria ran to him like a child running to Daddy. Daddy, these men are threatening us. They're being horrible. They're trying to destroy Christopher and Margaret. You have to do something. Richard's voice was commanding, practiced. The voice of a man used to controlling rooms and negotiations. I am Richard Ashford, CEO of Ashford Industries. What you people are doing right here, right now, is harassment, extortion, intimidation. I have lawyers on standby. I have connections with the police department, and I am prepared to use every legal resource at my disposal to protect my daughter and the Wellington family from this assault. He pulled out his phone and made a call, deliberately putting it on speaker so everyone could hear. Yes, this is Richard Ashford calling. I need to report a case of extortion and criminal harassment. Morgan Capital Group, yes, that's correct. They're currently at 87 Wellington Drive, threatening foreclosure on a pregnant woman's home and making baseless accusations against respected members of the community. Yes, I'll hold for the press liaison. Within 5 minutes, a local news van pulled up. Channel 7 News. A reporter jumped out with a camera crew. This had been planned. Richard had called them ahead of time, had them waiting nearby. The reporter, a woman in her 30s with perfect hair and a microphone, rushed toward the scene. Richard immediately went into performance mode, speaking directly to the camera with practiced ease. What you're witnessing here today is a tragedy, he said, his voice full of concern and compassion. These two men, these billionaire brothers, are using their wealth and power to bully a struggling family. The Wellingtons took in Sarah Morgan, a woman with no family and no resources, out of the goodness of their hearts. They gave her a home. They gave her the Wellington name. They treated her like family. And this right here, is how her brothers repay that kindness, with threats, with intimidation, with foreclosure notices on a pregnant woman's home. Victoria cried on camera, real tears streaming down her perfect face. Christopher and I are in love. We've been in love for years. We tried to do the right thing. We tried to stay away from each other. But they're trying to destroy us because they're prejudiced against our happiness. They think Christopher isn't good enough for their sister, so they're using their money to ruin our lives. I watched in horror as the narrative was flipped. Mrs. Clayton's video of me being thrown out had already been posted to social media, but Richard's PR team had been ready for this. They were spinning it in real time. James checked his phone and I saw his expression darken. Alex, we have a problem. A big one. He showed Alex's phone. I could see Twitter trending topics. Morgan Bullies was number 3 in climbing. Hashtag Save Christopher was number 7. Hashtag Billionaire Abuse was number 12. The tweets were brutal. Billionaire brothers destroy innocent family with money and power. Old money versus new money, war hurts pregnant woman caught in middle. Morgan Capital Group using wealth to intimidate and extort. All of them shared the same video, the same narrative. Richard's PR team had created dozens, maybe hundreds of fake accounts to push this story. They were flooding social media with their version of events. James's phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and grimaced. It's the board. Investors are calling emergency meeting. They're panicking about the publicity. Alex looked at James with an expression I couldn't quite read. He spoke quietly so only James and I could hear. If we keep pushing, if we keep going after the Wellingtons and Ashfords, the board will vote me out. They'll remove me as CEO. The company could collapse under the negative publicity. $8 billion, 3,000 employees, all of it could be gone. But if we back down, James said just as quietly, Sarah loses everything. They win. Margaret gets to keep pretending she's a victim. Christopher faces no consequences. Victoria and Richard move on to their next target. My brothers looked at each other. A whole conversation seemed to happen in that look. 20+ years of partnership, of building a company from nothing, of success they'd fought so hard for. Then they both looked at me. Pregnant, crying, sitting on a suitcase on the curb. I saw Alex make his decision. Let the board vote, he said. Let the company fall. I'm not abandoning my sister again. Agreed, James said immediately. But then, before anything else could happen, I felt it. Not a contraction this time. Something worse. A sudden gush of fluid between my legs, warm, wet, too much of it. My water had actually broken. Oh God, I gasped, looking down at the puddle forming on the sidewalk. Alex, something's wrong. Something's really wrong. Dr. Jennifer Ross, my OBGYN, had apparently arrived during all the commotion. She must have seen the news coverage or gotten a call from someone. She pushed through the crowd and knelt beside me. Sarah, I need you to listen to me, she said in her calm doctor voice. Your water just broke. You're 34 weeks pregnant. This baby is coming whether we're ready or not. We need to get you to a hospital. Right now. Alex immediately pulled out his phone. I'm calling for a medical helicopter. We'll have you at the best hospital in the state in 15 minutes. No, Dr. Ross said, no time. She's in active labor. Heart rate is elevated. Baby could be in distress. We need an ambulance, now. James was already dialing. Yes, this is an emergency. Pregnant woman, water broke, 34 weeks, active labor, 87 Wellington Drive. How fast can you get here? Ambulance is 8 minutes out, the dispatcher said over the speakerphone. The ambulance arrived in 6 minutes. The EMTs jumped out with a gurney and medical equipment. But that's when everything went from bad to worse. Insurance card? The EMT asked, clipboard in hand. I looked up at Dr. Ross desperately. My insurance, it's through Christopher's company, through Wellington Industries. He should have, Christopher. Please, give them the insurance card. The baby needs. Christopher stepped forward from the porch. His voice was cold, detached, like he was talking about canceling a newspaper subscription instead of denying medical care to his pregnant wife. I canceled her insurance this morning, effective immediately. She's not my wife anymore. She's not my responsibility. I have no legal obligation to provide her with health coverage. The EMT looked uncomfortable. Sir, she's in active labor. She needs immediate medical attention. Then take her to county hospital, Christopher said with a shrug. That's what it's there for. People without insurance. DeRoss's face was furious. I'll pay out of pocket, every cent. Get her in that ambulance right now. Alex already had his wallet out. Black American Express Centurion card, the card with no limit. Bill me, whatever it costs, I'll cover everything. The EMT shook his head. Sir, I appreciate that, but the hospital won't accept third-party payment without prior authorization and insurance verification. It's hospital policy. We can take her to County General, but without insurance, she'll be in the general emergency room, not the maternity ward. She'll have to wait like everyone else. Richard Ashford spoke up loudly, making sure the news camera caught every word. You see? You see what these billionaires do? They can't even get her proper medical care. They have all this money, but they can't help her when she actually needs it. This is exactly what I was talking about. This is the reality of their so-called concern. It's all for show. The news camera swung to capture me being loaded into the ambulance, water broken, in active labor, crying. Alex tried to climb into the ambulance with me. I'm going with her. She's my sister. I'm not leaving her. Family only, the EMT said. Immediate family, husband or parent. Christopher called out from the porch, his voice carrying across the crowd. I'm calling the hospital administrator right now. He's a personal friend. I'm telling him that those men, those Morgan brothers, they are not to be admitted to Sarah's room under any circumstances. I'm her husband. I'm still her legal next of kin, and I decide who gets to see her. Do you understand? The ambulance doors started to close. I saw my brothers standing on the street, helpless, despite all their wealth and power. I saw the crowd of neighbors still filming. I saw Margaret looking triumphant. I saw Victoria smirking. I saw Christopher standing there like the coward he was. The doors closed. I was alone in the ambulance, in active labor, 34 weeks pregnant, being taken to a county hospital without insurance, without family, without anyone. The EMT tried to be kind. We're going to take care of you, ma'am. Just breathe. Nice, deep breaths. We'll be at the hospital in 10 minutes. But I'd never felt more alone in my entire life. Through the small window in the ambulance doors, I could see my brothers standing on Wellington Drive. Alex had his phone out, already making calls. James was typing furiously on his tablet. But the ambulance pulled away, and they disappeared from view. This was it, my second peak of despair. Worse than being thrown out, worse than the betrayal. I was about to give birth, possibly prematurely, possibly with complications, in a county hospital emergency room, completely alone. The EMT kept talking to me, telling me to breathe, but I couldn't focus on his words. All I could think about was my baby, my little girl. She was coming too early. What if something was wrong? What if she was sick? What if I'd ruined her life before she even started it by marrying the wrong man, by being too naive, by not being strong enough to leave when I should have? Another contraction hit, stronger than before. I screamed. The EMT checked my vitals. Heart rate is elevated. Blood pressure is 160 over 105. That's too high. We need to get her stable. But I wasn't stable. My life wasn't stable. Nothing was stable. I closed my eyes and did the only thing I could do. I prayed. I prayed that my baby would be okay, that she would survive this, that she would be healthy and strong and everything I wasn't. I prayed that my brothers would find a way to reach me. I prayed that this nightmare would end. But I wasn't very good at praying. I'd never had much practice. No one had taught me how when I was little. Foster care doesn't leave much room for faith. So mostly I just cried and hoped and waited for whatever came next. The ambulance ride felt like it lasted forever, but according to the clock on the EMT's equipment, it was only 11 minutes. 11 minutes from Wellington Drive to County General Hospital. When the ambulance doors opened, I saw a building that was nothing like the private birthing suites I'd toured with Christopher 6 months ago. This was a public hospital. Underfunded, overcrowded. The emergency room entrance had people lined up outside waiting to be seen. "Make way," the EMT called out, wheeling my gurney through the crowd. "Active labor, premature birth coming through." People moved aside slowly. Some of them stared. Some of them looked sympathetic. Most of them just looked tired, dealing with their own emergencies. I was wheeled through automatic doors into fluorescent lighting and chaos. The emergency room was packed. Every chair was full. People were sitting on the floor. A baby was crying. Someone was yelling about needing pain medication. The smell of antiseptic couldn't quite cover the smell of too many people in too small a space. A triage nurse approached, clipboard in hand. "Name?" "Sarah Wellington," I gasped between contractions. 34 weeks pregnant. Water broke 20 minutes ago. "Insurance?" I don't have, it was canceled. "I can pay. Someone's going to pay." The nurse's expression didn't change. She'd heard this before. "We'll figure out payment later. Right now, we need to get you evaluated. But ma'am, without insurance, you'll need to wait for an available labor and delivery room. We're at capacity. It might be a few hours." A few hours? I couldn't believe it. "The baby's coming. I can't wait hours." "I understand, ma'am, but we have 3 other women in active labor ahead of you, and we only have 2 delivery rooms. Unless this is an emergency C-section situation, you'll have to wait your turn." Dr. Ross's voice cut through the chaos. She'd followed in her own car. "I'm her OB-GYN, Dr. Jennifer Ross, licensed in this state. I need to examine her immediately. This could be a high-risk premature delivery." The nurse's expression softened slightly. "Exam room 3 is open. You have 10 minutes. Dr. Ross wheeled me into a tiny exam room, cracked linoleum floor, a single examination table with a paper covering that looked like it had been used before. One of the overhead lights was flickering. This was nothing like the pristine, peaceful birthing suite I'd imagined. The one with the private bathroom and the comfortable bed and the sound system for playing calming music. This was real. This was what happened when you had nothing. Dr. Ross examined me quickly, her face growing more concerned with each passing second. "Sarah, I need you to listen to me very carefully," she said. "You're dilated to 6 centimeters. That's significant. Labor is progressing fast, too fast for a first-time mother. And the baby's heart rate is concerning. It's elevated, which could indicate fetal distress." "What does that mean?" I was terrified. "It means we might need to do an emergency C-section. But Sarah, this is a county hospital. They don't have a dedicated surgical team standing by. If we need surgery, it could take 30 to 45 minutes to get an OR ready and a surgical team assembled." Another contraction hit. This one was different, stronger. My body was bearing down, trying to push. I need to push, I gasped. I need to push right now. Don't push yet, Dr. Ross said firmly. Not yet. Pant. Like a dog. Short, quick breaths. Don't push until I tell you to. But my body didn't care what Dr. Ross said. My body was taking over, doing what it needed to do. Labor had begun whether we were ready or not. The next 3 hours were a blur of pain and fear and desperation. They finally found me a labor and delivery room, but it wasn't the peaceful sanctuary I'd imagined. It was a standard hospital room with equipment that looked like it was from the 1990s. The monitors beeped constantly. The bed was uncomfortable. There was no music, no dimmed lighting, no birth ball or tub, or any of the natural birth options I'd researched. Just me, Dr. Ross, and a rotating series of nurses who were clearly overworked and exhausted. Labor progressed fast, too fast. Dr. Ross kept checking the monitors, her frown deepening. Baby's heart rate keeps dropping, she murmured. When you have a contraction, the heart rate should stay steady or increase slightly, but it's dropping. That suggests the umbilical cord might be compressed. What does that mean? I could barely speak through the pain. It means the baby isn't getting enough oxygen during contractions. It means we might need to do an emergency C-section after all. But before she could call for the surgical team, my body made the decision for us. I felt an overwhelming urge to push. Not just urge, compulsion. My body was doing this, whether I was ready or not. She's crowning, one of the nurses called out. A doctor, the baby's crowning. We don't have time for surgery. Everything happened fast after that. Dr. Ross positioned herself. Sarah, listen to me. On the next contraction, I need you to push. Big push, as hard as you can. We need to get this baby out fast. The contraction hit like a freight train. I pushed with everything I had, screaming, crying, feeling like my body was being ripped apart. Good, again, another push. I pushed again and again and again, and then I heard it, a tiny, weak cry. It's a girl, DeRoss said, and I heard tears in her voice. You have a daughter, Sarah. They placed her on my chest for just a second, just long enough for me to see her. Tiny, so unbelievably tiny. Her skin was red and wrinkled. Her eyes were closed. She was covered in vernix and blood, but she was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Hi, baby, I whispered. Hi, my sweet girl. Mama's here. Mama loves you so much. But then they took her away. She's only 5 pounds of 2 ounces, a nurse said. 34 weeks gestation. Premature. She needs NICU evaluation immediately. Possible respiratory distress. I watched them carry my daughter away, this tiny person I just met, and terror seized me. Is she okay? I called out. Please, is my baby okay? We're going to take good care of her, Dr. Ross promised. But Sarah, you're hemorrhaging. We need to focus on you right now. I looked down and saw blood. Too much blood. The room suddenly filled with people, nurses, another doctor, someone calling for additional units of blood. Blood pressure dropping, someone said. Start an IV. We need fluids and pitocin to stop the bleeding. Fundal massage, stat. I felt hands on my stomach, pressing down hard, and the pain was almost worse than labor. Sarah, stay with me, Dr. Ross said, her face close to mine. Look at me. Focus on my voice. You're going to be okay. Your baby is going to be okay, but I need you to stay conscious. Keep your eyes open. Talk to me. My baby, I whispered. Where's my baby? She's in the NICU. They're evaluating her, taking good care of her. What do you want to name her? Hope, I said. The word came out without thinking. Her name is Hope, Hope Elizabeth Morgan. That's beautiful, Dr. Ross said. Hope is fighting right now, just like her mama. She's strong. You're both fighters. The bleeding finally stopped after what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. They stitched me up, cleaned me up, moved me to a recovery room. A recovery room that was really just another emergency room exam space with a curtain for privacy. And then I was alone. I asked to see my baby. The nurse said I had to wait until I was stable. Could be a few hours. I asked for a phone to call my brothers. The nurse looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, your husband called the hospital administrator. He's listed as your next of kin in medical power of attorney. He's given instructions that you are not allowed any visitors except him and no phone calls without his approval. He's not my husband anymore, I said, trying to sit up and immediately regretting it as pain shot through my body. Those men you're keeping out, they're my brothers. They need to know I'm okay. They need to know about the baby. I'm so sorry, the nurse said, and she really did look sorry. But hospital policy says we have to follow the next of kin's instructions unless there's a court order saying otherwise. My hands are tied. I lay back down, defeated. Through the thin walls, I could hear the sounds of the emergency room. People arguing, someone crying, machines beeping, life and death happening all around me. I looked out the small window in my room. I could see the parking lot, and beyond that, a TV in the hospital lobby playing the news. The headline on the screen read, "Billionaire brothers attack pregnant woman's family." There was footage of Richard Ashford giving an interview. These are dangerous men who care more about control than their sister's welfare. They're using their money as a weapon. My brothers were somewhere in this hospital. I knew that. I could feel it, but they couldn't get to me. Security had been alerted. Christopher had made sure of it. I was truly alone. No husband, no friends. My brothers were here but blocked from seeing me. My newborn daughter was in the NICU, and I hadn't even gotten to hold her properly. This was my absolute rock bottom, my third peak of despair. I'd just given birth to a premature baby in a county hospital. I was hemorrhaging. I couldn't see my child. I couldn't contact anyone. The whole world thought my brothers were monsters because of Richard Ashford's spin campaign. Everything had gone wrong, everything. I closed my eyes and cried. Deep, heaving sobs that hurt my stitched body, but I couldn't stop. A nurse came in to check on me, saw me crying, and her expression softened. "First baby?" she asked gently. I nodded, unable to speak. "It gets better," she said. "I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but it does get better. You're a fighter, I can tell. And that little girl of yours? Hope? She's a fighter too. 5 pounds 2 ounces is good for 34 weeks. Real good. She's going to make it." "Can I see her?" I begged. "Please, just for a minute. I need to see her." The nurse hesitated. "You're supposed to wait until you're more stable, but..." She looked around like she was checking for supervisors. "Come on, let's get you in a wheelchair. 5 minutes. That's all I can give you." She helped me into a wheelchair, and we went to the NICU. The neonatal intensive care unit was quieter than the emergency room, but somehow more intense. Tiny babies in plastic incubators covered in wires and tubes. Monitors beeping, parents standing vigil. My daughter was in the third incubator from the left. She was so small, her whole body would fit in my hands. She wore a tiny diaper and had wires attached to her chest, monitoring her heart rate and breathing. A feeding tube went into her nose, an IV in her tiny hand. But she was alive. She was breathing. Her little chest was rising and falling. "She's doing well," a NICU nurse said. "All things considered, her oxygen saturation is good, heart rate is stable. She just needs some time to grow and get stronger. Probably 2 weeks in the NICU, maybe 3. I reached through the incubator opening and touched her hand with one finger. Her tiny fingers wrapped around mine instinctively. "Hi, Hope," I whispered. "It's Mama. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you had to come into the world like this. I'm sorry I couldn't give you better. But I promise you, I promise everything's going to be okay. We're going to fight. We're going to survive. And someday, you're going to have everything you deserve." Her little hand squeezed my finger and my heart broke and healed at the same time. "Time's up," the nurse who'd brought me said gently. "You need to get back to your room and rest." "Can I come back, please?" "Every few hours, as long as you're stable, but you need to rest between visits. Your body just went through trauma. You lost a lot of blood." Back in my recovery room, I lay in the uncomfortable bed and stared at the ceiling. My daughter was alive. That was something. That was everything, but I was still alone, still trapped, still unable to contact the people who cared about me. I must have fallen asleep because when I woke up, it was dark outside. The hospital was quieter. Night shift. That's when Dr. Ross snuck into my room. She closed the door quietly behind her and came to my bedside. Sarah, I'm breaking every protocol in the book right now, she whispered, but I can't let you go through this alone. Here, she handed me her personal cell phone. It's untraceable to you. Call your brothers. Tell them you're okay. Tell them about Hope. I'm giving you 15 minutes before I need it back. Why are you doing this? Tears filled my eyes. You could lose your job. DeRoss's expression was sad, because 10 years ago, I watched my younger sister go through something similar. Abusive husband, isolated from family, gave birth alone. No one helped her. No one broke the rules for her, and she didn't make it. Postpartum hemorrhage that could have been prevented if she'd had proper support. I'm not letting that happen to you, she squeezed my hand. Make your calls. I'll be outside keeping watch. With shaking hands, I dialed Alex's number. He answered on the first ring. Hello? Alex, it's me. It's Sarah. Sarah, oh my God, are you okay? We've been going crazy down here. Security won't let us up. Christopher called a hospital administrator. There's some kind of legal hold. We've got lawyers working on it, but it's going to take time. I'm okay, I interrupted. I'm okay. The baby's here. I had a girl, Hope Elizabeth Morgan. She's in the NICU, but she's stable. 5 pounds, 2 ounces. She's going to be okay. I heard Alex's voice break. A girl. We have a niece. Let me talk to her, James's voice in the background. Alex put me on speaker. Sarah, it's James. We're so sorry. We're trying everything we can to get to you. I know, I said. I know you are. But listen, I don't have much time. Dr. Ross smuggled me her phone. I need you to listen carefully. I took a deep breath. I need you two to promise me something. I need you to promise me that you're going to destroy them. Margaret, Christopher, Victoria, Richard, all of them. I need them to pay for what they've done, not just to me, to all their victims. Because Victoria's done this before, hasn't she? You said she had priors. How many other women has she destroyed? How many other families? We're already on it, Alex said, his voice hard. We've got people working around the clock. Detective Reed found something big. Victoria's not who she says she is. Tell me, I said. Her real name is Victoria Brennan, James said. She's wanted in 3 states. Marriage fraud. She's conned at least 7 wealthy families that we know of, probably more. Total damages over $50 million. She and Richard work as a team. He plays the wealthy businessman father. She plays the socialite daughter. They target families in financial trouble, offer mergers or rescue deals. She marries into the family, they drain the assets, and then they disappear. My blood ran cold. So this whole thing, from the beginning, it was a setup? From the very beginning, Alex confirmed. Christopher's gambling debts made the Wellingtons the perfect target. Margaret's desperate to save the family business. Victoria offered the perfect solution through a marriage merger. They never intended for you to be part of the plan long term. You were an obstacle to be removed. Then remove them, I said, and I didn't recognize my own voice. It was cold, hard, nothing like the sweet, naive girl who'd married Christopher 3 years ago. I want them destroyed, all of them. Legally, financially, socially, I don't care. I want justice. You'll have it, James promised. 1 week, Sarah. Give us 1 week. We're setting a trap. The FBI wants Victoria and Richard, but they need evidence. We're going to let them think they've won, let them get comfortable, and then we're going to destroy them so completely they'll wish they'd never heard the name Morgan. I can wait a week, I said. For Hope's sake, I can wait. There's one more thing, Alex said carefully. We need to get Christopher's medical power of attorney revoked. We're filing an emergency injunction tomorrow morning with a different judge. Judge Morrison is the only family court judge usually available, and she's in the Ashford's pocket. But we found another judge who can hear medical proxy cases, Judge David Hernandez. He's tough but fair. We're going to get you and Hope protected. Do it, I said. Sarah, James said gently, when this is over, when Hope is out of the NICU and you're both healthy, you're coming to stay with us. We have a house, well, a mansion, really, with plenty of room. You and Hope will never want for anything again. You understand? Never. I know, I whispered. Thank you for finding me, for not giving up on me. We're family, Alex said simply. Family never gives up. Dr. Ross knocked softly on the door. Sarah, I need the phone back. I have to go, I told my brothers. But I love you, both of you. Even though we've been apart for 20 years, I love you. We love you too, little sister, they said together. I handed the phone back to Dr. Ross just as my recovery room nurse came in for a vitals check. Dr. Ross slipped out smoothly, no one the wiser. The nurse checked my blood pressure, temperature, listened to my heart. How are you feeling? Tired, I admitted. Sore, but better. Can I see Hope again? In a few hours. Right now you need to sleep. Doctor's orders. Your body needs to heal. But I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing. 1 week. I had to survive 1 week. Keep myself and Hope safe for 7 days while my brothers set their trap. I could do that. I had to, for Hope's sake. I finally drifted off to sleep around 3 in the morning, exhausted beyond measure. When I woke up, bright morning sunlight was streaming through the window, and my brother's trap was already in motion. The next morning, I woke to find a new nurse checking my vitals. She was older than the night shift nurse, probably in her 50s, with kind eyes and graying hair. Good morning, Sarah, she said warmly. I'm Nurse Patricia. How are you feeling today? Sore, I admitted, but I want to see my daughter. Can I go to the NICU? Let me check your chart. She reviewed my medical information. Dr. Ross has you cleared for NICU visits as long as someone accompanies you. Your blood pressure is still a little high, 140/95, but it's better than yesterday. And the bleeding has stopped completely, which is good news. She helped me into a wheelchair and took me to the NICU. Hope looked exactly the same as last night. Tiny, fragile, but alive and breathing steadily. She had a good night, the NICU nurse told me. Took 2 ounces of formula from a bottle. That's excellent for her gestational age. Most 34-weekers need feeding tubes for the first few days. But your girl is a fighter. I reached into the incubator and held her tiny hand again. Hi, baby girl, it's Mama again. I'm so proud of you. You're doing so good. Her eyes were closed, but I could swear she turned her head slightly toward my voice. Can I hold her? I asked the nurse. Not yet. Maybe in a day or two once she's more stable. But you can talk to her, read to her. Babies in the NICU benefit so much from parental bonding, even if it's just through the incubator. So I sat there for an hour talking to my daughter about everything and nothing, telling her about the clouds I'd painted in her nursery at the Wellington estate, telling her about her uncles who were going to spoil her rotten, telling her about how strong she was, how loved she was, how her whole life was ahead of her. I didn't tell her about the chaos swirling around us, the legal battles, the fraud schemes, the betrayals. She didn't need to know about any of that. Not yet. Maybe not ever if I could protect her from it.
Isha.
What I didn't know was that while I was bonding with Hope, my brothers were executing their plan with military precision. That morning at exactly 9 a.m., Alex and James posted a video to their social media accounts. Both of them had millions of followers because of their business success. The video went viral within an hour. In the video, my brothers sat in what looked like a professional office, both in suits, looking humble and apologetic. Alex spoke first. We want to address the events of yesterday at Wellington Drive. We made mistakes. We let our emotions override our judgment. When we finally found our sister Sarah after 20 years of searching, and we saw her in distress, we reacted poorly. James continued, we made accusations without proof. We threw around our weight and our money in ways that were intimidating and inappropriate. We want to apologize to the Wellington family and the Ashford family for our behavior. We're withdrawing all claims against their assets. We're reversing the debt purchases. We hope they can move forward in peace. They both looked directly at the camera with what appeared to be genuine remorse. We were wrong, they said together. We're sorry. The video ended. Social media exploded. Within 2 hours, the hashtag Morgan Bullies disappeared from trending. It was replaced with class act and real apology and billionaire humility. Comments flooded in. This is what real men look like, admitting when they were wrong. Morgan brothers showing actual accountability, respect. Maybe there's more to this story than we knew. But the most important response came from the Wellingtons and Ashfords. Margaret Wellington gave an interview to Channel 7 News that afternoon. "I accept their apology," she said graciously, standing on the porch of Wellington Manor in another Chanel suit. "Family conflicts can become heated. I'm sure the Morgan brothers meant well. They were concerned about their sister. I can understand that, even if their methods were inappropriate. I hope we can all move past this unfortunate incident." Richard Ashford posted his own statement. "Justice has prevailed. The Morgan brothers have seen the error of their ways. Now we can focus on what really matters: the upcoming union of my daughter Victoria and Christopher Wellington. Their love story can finally have the happy ending it deserves." And then they made the announcement my brothers had been waiting for. The wedding, Christopher Wellington and Victoria Ashford, 10 days from now, at the Wellington estate. A celebration of true love conquering all obstacles. The moment that announcement went live, my brother's real plan kicked into gear. Behind the scenes, things were moving fast. Detective Marcus Reed, working on behalf of my brothers, sent Victoria's fingerprints and dental records to the FBI. Fingerprints he'd obtained from a water glass Victoria had used at a charity event. Dental records he'd gotten from a dentist in Nevada who remembered treating a woman matching Victoria's description 15 years ago. The FBI ran the prints through their database. Match: Victoria Brennan, real name. 3 outstanding warrants: Nevada, Florida, Texas, marriage fraud, wire fraud, identity theft. Her father, Richard Ashford, also fake. Real name, Richard Brennan. Her actual biological father, 6 outstanding warrants: conspiracy to commit fraud, racketeering, money laundering. They'd been running cons for 20 years. 7 known victims, probably dozens more who never reported it out of embarrassment. But they'd never had anyone like my brothers coming after them before. While the FBI gathered evidence for warrants, my brother's forensic accountants were tearing apart the Wellington family finances. What they found was worse than the public debt number suggested. Margaret Wellington hadn't just mismanaged the family business. She'd embezzled from the Wellington Family Foundation, a charity that was supposed to help underprivileged children in the local school system. $2.3 million over 5 years, siphoned into a Swiss bank account, covered up with falsified donor reports and forged financial statements. James sent that information to the IRS with a formal complaint, with mountains of documentation, with a notation that the Morgan Capital Group was willing to testify as expert witnesses about financial fraud patterns. The IRS opened an investigation within 24 hours. Christopher's gambling debts were even worse than initial reports showed. He owed money to 3 different loan shark operations. All 3 were under FBI investigation for ties to organized crime, money laundering, and racketeering. The FBI was very interested in Christopher's financial records once Alex's lawyers handed them over. Very interested in the shell companies Christopher had used to hide his gambling losses. Very interested in the wire transfers to offshore accounts. They started an investigation into Christopher for potential money laundering as an accessory to organized crime. But none of this was public yet. To the world, it looked like the Morgan brothers had backed down, like the Wellingtons and Ashfords had won, exactly as planned. Meanwhile, in the hospital, things were complicated for me. James had filed the emergency injunction against Christopher's medical power of attorney. The hearing was scheduled for 3 days later in front of Judge David Hernandez. But until then, I was still under Christopher's control. Security still wouldn't let my brothers visit. I couldn't make phone calls without approval. The only person who helped me was Dr. Ross. She forgot to report that she'd seen Alex and James in the hospital. She accidentally left her cell phone in my room multiple times so I could call my brothers. She made sure I had everything I needed medically. "I'm documenting everything," she told me during one of her visits. "Every instance of Christopher trying to control your medical care. Every time security blocked your family from visiting. Every decision he made that was about controlling you rather than your well-being or Hope's well-being. It's all going in my official medical report. And that report will be entered as evidence in family court." "Why are you doing all this?" I asked her. "You could lose your medical license for breaking protocols." "Because it's right," she said simply, "and because I couldn't help my sister when she needed it. But I can help you." On the 3rd day after Hope's birth, I was finally allowed to hold her. The NICU nurse carefully lifted her from the incubator, managing all the wires and tubes, and placed her in my arms. She was so light, so tiny. Her whole body fit against my chest. She made little mewing sounds and snuggled against me. I cried. I couldn't help it. This was my daughter. This perfect little person who'd come into the world too early because of stress I'd put on my body. But she was here. She was real. She was mine. "Hi, Hope," I whispered, looking down at her tiny face. "Mama's got you now. I'm never letting you go. I promise, whatever it takes, I'm going to give you the best life. You're going to have everything I never had. Love, family, safety, everything." She opened her eyes for just a second. Bright blue eyes, unfocused, but beautiful. Then she closed them again and went back to sleep. I held her for an hour before the NICU nurse said she needed to go back into the incubator for temperature regulation. But that hour changed everything for me. Before, I'd been fighting for myself, fighting to survive, fighting to not be destroyed by people who tried to break me. Now I was fighting for her, for hope. And that was different. That was stronger. No one was going to hurt my daughter. No one was going to take her from me. No one was going to use her as a pawn in their schemes. I would burn the world down before I let that happen. The emergency hearing for medical power of attorney was on day 4. Dr. Ross testified first. She brought her medical reports, meticulously documented, showing every instance of Christopher making decisions that were about control rather than medical necessity. Mr. Wellington canceled Mrs. Wellington's health insurance while she was 8 months pregnant, Dr. Ross testified. He did this knowing she had prenatal appointments scheduled, knowing she would need labor and delivery care imminently. This was not a medical decision. This was a punitive decision designed to hurt her. He instructed hospital security to deny her family access. She continued. Her brothers, who were willing and able to provide emotional support during a traumatic premature birth. He did this not because visits would be medically harmful, but because he wanted to isolate her. He refused to sign consent for pain medication during labor, she revealed, and I hadn't even known about this. The nursing staff had to get an emergency override from the on-call physician because Mrs. Wellington was in severe pain and Mr. Wellington was unreachable by phone. When we finally reached him, he said, and I quote, "She got herself into this situation. She can deal with the consequences." Judge Hernandez's expression was thunderous. Christopher's lawyer tried to object. "Your Honor, Mr. Wellington was under extreme stress. His marriage was ending. His wife's brothers had threatened him and his family." "I've read the Morgan brothers' sworn affidavits," Judge Hernandez interrupted. "They never threatened physical harm. They made statements about legal and financial actions. That's not grounds for denying medical care to a pregnant woman." My brother's lawyer presented their case. "Your Honor, Sarah Morgan, formerly Sarah Wellington, is an adult woman capable of making her own medical decisions. Her husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, has used his position as medical power of attorney not to advocate for her health, but to punish and control her. We're asking that his authority be terminated immediately and that Mrs. Morgan be restored to full medical autonomy." Judge Hernandez didn't even need to deliberate. "Medical power of attorney terminated effective immediately," he ruled. "Mrs. Sarah Morgan is restored to full medical decision-making authority for herself and her minor child, Hope Elizabeth Morgan. Furthermore, Mr. Christopher Wellington is hereby prohibited from making any medical decisions on behalf of either Mrs. Morgan or the child without written consent from Mrs. Morgan. This order is effective immediately." He looked directly at Christopher, who was sitting in the courtroom looking furious. "Mr. Wellington, what you did was not only cruel, it was potentially dangerous. You endangered both your wife and your newborn daughter through your actions. I'm ordering a full investigation into your fitness as a parent. Until that investigation is complete, you are to have no contact with the minor child. Do you understand?" Christopher's lawyer nodded. Christopher himself looked like he wanted to argue but knew better. Within hours, security at the hospital had updated their records. Alex and James were finally allowed to visit. They came to my hospital room first, before going to see Hope. When they walked through the door, I burst into tears. Alex hugged me carefully, mindful of my healing body. "We're here, finally. I'm so sorry it took so long." "It's okay," I said. "You're here now. That's what matters." Tell us everything, James said, sitting in the visitor chair. How are you? How's Hope? What do you need? I told them everything. The labor, the hemorrhaging, the NICU, holding Hope for the first time. She's perfect, I said. So small, but so perfect. Do you want to meet her? More than anything, Alex said. We went to the NICU together. The nurse was expecting us. Judge Hernandez's order had been sent to the hospital. My brothers stood in front of Hope's incubator, and I watched their faces transform. Alex, the ruthless CEO who'd built an $8 billion company, started crying. Actual tears running down his face. James, the brilliant CFO who never showed emotion in business meetings, put his hand over his mouth to muffle a sob. She's so tiny, Alex whispered. She's the size of my hand. She's beautiful, James said. She looks like you, Sarah. She has your nose. She has your eyes, I told Alex. Same color, brown with gold flecks. The NICU nurse smiled at us. Would you gentlemen like to hold her? We encourage family bonding. We can. Alex looked shocked. Of course, you're her uncles. Family is so important for NICU babies. She carefully removed Hope from the incubator and placed her in Alex's arms. My 6'3" brother, who negotiated billion-dollar deals and terrified boardrooms, held my 5-pound daughter like she was made of glass. Hi, Hope, he said softly. I'm your Uncle Alex, and I promise you, right here, right now, no one is ever going to hurt you. No one is ever going to make you feel small or worthless or alone. You're a Morgan, and Morgans protect each other. James took his turn holding her next. Hi, sweetheart. I'm Uncle James, and I'm going to spoil you absolutely rotten. Uncle Alex is going to try to be responsible and teach you about financial literacy and boring stuff like that. But I'm going to buy you toys and ponies and whatever you want. Despite everything, I laughed. This was family. This was what I'd been missing my entire life. The NICU nurse let them hold Hope for 20 minutes before she needed to go back into the incubator. As we walked back to my room, James pulled out his tablet. We need to update you on the plan, he said. The wedding is in 6 days. Victoria and Christopher, Wellington Estate, 200 guests. It's going to be the society event of the season according to the local papers. And? I asked. And the FBI is ready, Alex said with a cold smile. They have warrants for Victoria and Richard Brennan. They're waiting until the ceremony to execute them. Maximum publicity, maximum humiliation, maximum justice. What about Margaret? I asked. The IRS investigation is ongoing, James said. But we have enough evidence to bury her in criminal charges. Embezzlement, charity fraud, tax evasion. She's looking at minimum 10 years in federal prison. And Christopher? His gambling debts connected him to money laundering operations, Alex said. The FBI is building a case. He'll face charges as an accessory, probably 3 to 5 years. But, James added carefully, there's something you need to decide, Sarah, about Hope, about Christopher's parental rights. I knew what he was asking. DNA test, I said. We need to do one. Prove he's the father. And then I want full custody. I want him to have 0 rights, 0 access, 0 everything. Are you sure? Alex asked gently. That's a big decision. I've never been more sure of anything, I said. He denied me health insurance when I was pregnant. He tried to control my medical care out of spite. He's the reason I nearly bled to death in a county hospital instead of a proper facility. He doesn't get to be Hope's father. He doesn't deserve that title. We'll get it done, James promised. DNA test tomorrow. Results in 72 hours. And then we file for full custody termination. 6 more days, I said. Can we make it 6 more days? We can make it as long as we need to, Alex said. But yes, 6 days until the trap springs, until everyone gets exactly what they deserve. The next 6 days were the strangest of my life. On the surface, everything seemed normal. Or as normal as it could be with a premature baby in the NICU and me recovering from a traumatic birth in a county hospital. But underneath, there was this constant thrumming tension, like the calm before a massive storm. My brothers visited every day. They'd restructured their entire work schedules to be available. Alex was handling most business remotely. James had delegated his responsibilities to their executive team. The company can survive without us for a few weeks, Alex said, when I protested that they didn't need to spend so much time at the hospital. Hope can't. You can't. We're not leaving. They brought me things, comfortable clothes that actually fit, proper toiletries from expensive brands, magazines and books, a tablet loaded with movies and TV shows to pass the time. James brought a laptop so I could start researching baby things. When Hope gets discharged, you're both coming to stay with us, he said. So we need to set up a nursery. Pick out everything you want. Money is no object. James, I can't let you. You can and you will, he interrupted. Sarah, we're family. We spent 20 years apart. We're not wasting any more time. You and Hope are going to have the best of everything, and that's final. So I spent hours looking at cribs and changing tables and rocking chairs, picking out colors for the nursery. Soft yellow and white, I decided. Gender neutral and peaceful. Alex had a different project. He was researching daycare centers and preschools. She's 5 days old, I said, laughing. Don't you think you're getting a little ahead of yourself? The good schools have wait lists that are years long, he said seriously. We need to get on them now. I'm looking at Montessori programs. They have excellent early childhood development philosophies. Watching my successful, powerful brothers turn into doting uncles was surreal and wonderful. But while they fussed over Hope and me, the trap was being set. Outside the hospital walls, the Wellingtons and Ashfords were celebrating their victory. Margaret gave interviews about how gracious she was being by accepting the Morgan brothers' apology. I believe in forgiveness, she told Channel 7 News, wearing her pearls and looking like the picture of upper-class magnanimity. Christopher's wedding to Victoria will be a new beginning for our families. Victoria posted on social media constantly. Pictures of her wedding dress fittings, photos of flower arrangements, videos of the Wellington estate being decorated for the ceremony. She looked radiant, happy, like a woman who just won the lottery. She had no idea the FBI was watching her every move. Christopher kept a lower profile, but he did post one thing, a statement on his Instagram. Looking forward to marrying the love of my life in 6 days. Some people tried to tear us apart, but true love prevails. Victoria and I are stronger than ever. The comments were mostly supportive. Congratulations. So happy for you. Beautiful couple. A few people asked about me, about his first wife, about the baby. He ignored those comments. Richard Ashford was busy too, finalizing the fake merger contracts between Ashford Industries and Wellington Industries. The $50 million injection that would supposedly save the Wellington family business. Money that didn't exist. A company that was mostly shell corporations and fraudulent paperwork. But the Wellingtons didn't know that. They thought they were being rescued. Meanwhile, Detective Reed was working with the FBI to build an airtight case. We have 7 previous victims willing to testify, he reported to my brothers during one of their hospital visits. Women who lost everything to Victoria and Richard's schemes. One lost her family home, another lost her inheritance. A third ended up in bankruptcy. Good, James said coldly. The more evidence, the better. There's something else, Reed said. We found Victoria's husband, her actual legal husband, in Dubai. My brothers looked shocked. She's married? Has been for 6 years, Reed confirmed, to a businessman named Hassan al-Rashid. She faked her death to escape that marriage, told him she died in a car accident in Morocco, had fake death certificates made and everything. So her marriage to Christopher would be bigamy, Alex said. Exactly, that's a federal crime. Adds another charge to the pile. The FBI was also investigating Judge Patricia Morrison, the family court judge who'd been helping the Ashfords. They found evidence that she'd been promised $5 million as a wedding gift in exchange for her cooperation. Bribery of a public official. She was about to lose her career and possibly face prison time. Everything was coming together like pieces of a complex puzzle. On day 3 after Hope's birth, they did the DNA test. A technician came to the NICU with a swab kit. She gently swabbed the inside of Hope's cheek while my daughter slept peacefully in her incubator. Results in 72 hours, she said. We'll rush it given the legal circumstances. Christopher had been required by court order to submit his DNA sample. He'd done it at a different facility, probably fuming the entire time. I already knew what the results would show. Hope was absolutely Christopher's daughter. I'd never been unfaithful, never even looked at another man during my marriage. But having the official proof would be important for the custody case. By day 5, Hope was doing remarkably well. She gained weight, up to 5 pounds 9 ounces from her birth weight of 5 pounds 2 ounces. She was taking bottles like a champ. Her oxygen saturation was perfect. All her vital signs were stable. If she keeps this up, the NICU doctor said, she might be able to go home in another week, maybe less. The thought of taking Hope home, of starting our real life together, was both exciting and terrifying. Where would home be? I couldn't go back to the Wellington estate. I didn't have my own apartment anymore. I'd given everything up when I married Christopher. "You're coming to stay with us," Alex said for the 100th time. "We have plenty of room. 32 rooms, actually. Ridiculous, I know, but it was a good investment, and we each have our own wing. You and Hope can have the entire East Wing, 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a sitting room, everything you need. And we're having a nursery set up right next to the master bedroom." "Alex, I can't just move in with you." "Why not?" James asked. "We're family. You're our sister. Hope is our niece. Where else would you go?" He had a point. "Okay," I finally agreed, "but only until I can get on my feet. I'm going to get a job, save money, find my own place." "We'll discuss your future career plans when you're ready," Alex said diplomatically. "Right now, focus on healing and bonding with Hope." On day 6, the DNA results came back. Christopher Wellington was confirmed as Hope's biological father with 99.9% certainty. My lawyer, provided by my brothers, immediately filed paperwork in family court. Petition for full custody, petition for termination of Christopher's parental rights, petition for child support, petition for restraining order. The court date was set for 2 weeks out. Judge David Hernandez would preside, but Christopher wouldn't be able to attend, because in less than 24 hours, he was going to be in FBI custody. The night before the wedding, I had trouble sleeping. I was back in a regular hospital room now, not the emergency recovery area. Dr. Ross had pulled strings to get me transferred to a private room with a comfortable bed and a better view. Hope was still in the NICU, but improving every day. My brothers had gone back to their home to prepare for tomorrow. They'd be attending the wedding. Not as guests, as witnesses to justice. Dr. Ross came to check on me around 11 p.m. "Nervous about tomorrow?" she asked. "Terrified," I admitted. "What if something goes wrong? What if they escape? What if the FBI's evidence isn't enough?" "It'll be enough," she assured me. "Your brothers have made sure of that, and I'll be here with you in Hope. Whatever happens, you're safe." She was right. I was safe. Hope was safe. But I still couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the women Victoria had hurt before me, the families she'd destroyed, the lives she'd ruined. Tomorrow that ended. Tomorrow justice would be served. I finally fell asleep around 2 a.m., my hand resting on my healing belly, dreaming of a future where my daughter grew up safe and loved and free from the shadow of the people who tried to destroy us. When I woke up the next morning, it was wedding day. The day that everything would change. Again. But this time, change would be in my favor. This time, the victims would become victors. This time, evil would face consequences. I spent the morning with Hope, holding her and talking to her about everything and nothing. The NICU nurse had said I could dress her in regular baby clothes now instead of just a diaper. I'd brought in a tiny pink onesie that said "Daddy's Girl" as a bitter joke, then changed my mind and brought one that said "Loved Beyond Measure" instead. That's what she was. Loved beyond any measure. By me, by her uncles, by Dr. Ross and the NICU staff who'd taken such good care of her. At 2 p.m., my brothers called me from Wellington Drive. "We're in position," Alex said. "The ceremony starts at 3. FBI is ready to move at 3:30, right after the vows." "I wish I could be there," I said. "No, you don't," James said. "Trust me, you're better off here with Hope. This is going to get ugly." "Good," I said. "Let it get ugly. They deserve ugly." "We'll call you as soon as it's done," Alex promised. "And Sarah, this is for you. All of this. For you and Hope. For every woman they've hurt. Today we make sure they can never hurt anyone again." "Thank you," I whispered. for everything. We're family, they said together. This is what family does. The line went silent, and I waited. I couldn't be there in person, but my brothers arranged for me to watch via live stream. James had somehow gotten access to the Wellington Estate's security camera feeds. He sent me a secure link on Dr. Ross's tablet. I sat in my hospital room with Hope sleeping in a portable bassinet beside me. Dr. Ross had pulled strings to let me have Hope in my room for a few hours instead of the NICU. You shouldn't be alone for this, she'd said. On the tablet screen, I could see Wellington Drive transform for a society wedding. The estate looked beautiful, I had to admit. White roses everywhere. A white carpet rolling from the front door down to the driveway. An elaborate archway covered in flowers where the ceremony would take place. Rows of white chairs set up on the front lawn. A string quartet playing soft classical music. 200 guests arrived in luxury cars. I recognized most of them. Mrs. Clayton and her husband. Other neighbors from Wellington Drive. Margaret's society friends in their designer dresses and expensive jewelry. Business associates of Christopher's. All the upper-class people who'd watched me be humiliated on this same lawn 10 days ago. None of them knew what was about to happen. The security feed showed multiple angles. I could see FBI agents positioned around the perimeter, dressed as catering staff and parking valets. I could see my brothers standing near the back, looking like regular wedding guests in their expensive suits. At exactly 3 p.m., the ceremony began. The string quartet started playing the wedding march. Victoria appeared at the front door of Wellington Manor. I'll give her credit. She looked stunning. Her wedding dress was white silk, form-fitting, with a dramatic train that had to cost $50,000 or more. Her dark hair was styled in an elegant updo. She carried a bouquet of white roses and lilies. She looked like every bride's dream. Beautiful, radiant, happy. She walked down the white carpet on Richard's arm. He wore an expensive tuxedo and looked every bit the proud father of the bride. They were both such good actors. Christopher stood at the altar waiting. He wore a designer tuxedo. His hair was perfectly styled. He looked handsome and confident. He looked nothing like the coward who'd thrown his pregnant wife onto the street. Margaret sat in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief, playing the emotional mother of the groom perfectly. The officiant began. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Christopher Andrew Wellington and Victoria Marie Ashford in holy matrimony. I felt sick watching this. Watching Christopher promise to love and cherish Victoria the same way he'd promised to love and cherish me 3 years ago. But I kept watching because I needed to see this, needed to witness the moment when their perfect facade shattered. The ceremony continued. Readings about love, vows exchanged, Christopher and Victoria staring into each other's eyes like they were the only two people in the world. Do you, Christopher Andrew Westington, take Victoria Marie Ashford to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Do you, Victoria Marie Ashford, take Christopher Andrew Wellington to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do. The officiant smiled. If anyone has reason these two should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace. This was the moment. The back doors of the estate burst open. FBI agents in tactical gear swarmed onto the lawn. Victoria Brennan, Richard Brennan, you are under arrest for wire fraud, racketeering, bigamy, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The screaming started immediately. Guests jumped from their chairs. The string quartet stopped playing. Margaret stood up looking confused and terrified. Victoria tried to run. She actually tried to run in her wedding dress and heels. She made it about 10 feet before 3 FBI agents tackled her onto the white carpet. Her veil ripped. Her perfectly styled hair came undone. Her bouquet scattered across the lawn. Get off me, she screamed. This is assault. I'll sue you. I'll have your badges. Victoria Brennan, you have the right to remain silent, the agent said, handcuffing her wrists behind her back. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Richard tried to escape in a different direction. He headed for the Mercedes parked in the driveway. But FBI vehicles had blocked all the exits. He ran straight into a roadblock. They slammed him against the hood of his car and cuffed him. Richard Brennan, you are under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Through the security feed, I could hear everything. The chaos, the screaming, the confusion. Mrs. Clayton had her phone out, recording everything. Of course she was. Margaret stood frozen on the front lawn, not understanding what was happening. Then more FBI agents approached her. Margaret Elizabeth Wellington, you are under arrest for embezzlement, charity fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy to commit fraud. What? No, this is a mistake. I've done nothing wrong. They handcuffed her right there in front of all her society friends. The woman who'd stood on this same porch 10 days ago and destroyed my reputation was now being led away in handcuffs. Her carefully constructed image of upper-class respectability shattered in an instant. Christopher tried to fade into the crowd of guests, tried to disappear, but the FBI had files on everyone. Christopher Wellington, you are under arrest as an accessory to wire fraud and conspiracy. Additional charges pending from separate federal investigation into money laundering. I want my lawyer, Christopher shouted as they cuffed him. I'm not saying anything without my lawyer. That's your right, the agent said calmly. You'll be able to make a phone call from the Federal Detention Center. Within 15 minutes, all four of them were in FBI custody. Victoria was still screaming as they loaded her into an FBI van. Her $50,000 wedding dress was covered in grass stains and dirt. Her makeup was running down her face. Richard was silent, stone-faced, finally accepting that his luck had run out. Margaret was crying, sobbing about how this was all a misunderstanding, how she was a pillar of the community, how her lawyers would fix this. Christopher looked scared, really scared, like he was finally understanding the consequences of his actions. The wedding guests were in chaos. Some were filming on their phones. Some were being questioned by FBI agents as witnesses. Some were trying to leave but couldn't because the FBI had sealed off the estate. The news vans arrived within minutes. Channel 7 News, Channel 3, Channel 11, even a national news crew. This was going to be everywhere. The society wedding of the year had turned into the arrest of the decade. I watched the whole thing on Dr. Ross's tablet, and I don't know what I felt. Not happiness exactly. This wasn't happy. This was justice, but justice for terrible things that should never have happened in the first place. Relief, maybe. Relief that it was over, that they couldn't hurt anyone else, that my daughter would grow up in a world where these people were in prison instead of walking free. Vindication? Yes, definitely vindication, because every single person who'd watched me be humiliated on that lawn 10 days ago was now watching the people who'd hurt me get exactly what they deserved. My brothers called me as soon as the FBI vans pulled away. Did you see? Alex asked. I saw everything, I said. Is it really over? It's over, James confirmed. They're being taken to the Federal Detention Center. Bail hearing is tomorrow, but with their flight risk and the multiple warrants, they're not getting bail. They'll stay in custody until trial. What happens now? Now we wait for the trials, Alex said. Federal prosecutor says they have airtight cases, multiple victims willing to testify, mountains of financial evidence, Victoria's marriage certificate from Dubai, Richard's fake identity documents. It's all there. How long until trial? 6 months, maybe 8, James said. Federal courts move slowly, but don't worry, they're not going anywhere. I looked at Hope, sleeping peacefully in her bassinet, completely unaware that justice had just been served on her behalf. Thank you, I told my brothers, for everything, for finding me, for saving me, for this. You don't need to thank us, Alex said gently. We're family. This is what we do. After we hung up, Dr. Ross came into my room. I heard, she said. It's all over the news. 4 arrests at society wedding. They're calling it the con of the decade. She sat down beside my bed. How are you feeling? Numb, I admitted. I thought I'd feel more, I don't know, more something, but mostly I just feel tired. That's normal, she said. You've been through trauma. Your body and mind need time to process. The important thing is that you and Hope are safe now. They can't hurt you anymore. She was right. For the first time in months, maybe years, I was actually safe. Hope was safe. The nightmare was finally over. That night, the arrests were the top story on every news channel. I watched the coverage on the hospital TV. 4 arrested at what was supposed to be the society wedding of the year, the anchor said. Victoria and Richard Brennan, using the alias Ashford, are wanted in 3 states for marriage fraud schemes, totaling over $50 million in stolen assets. Margaret Wellington, society matriarch, arrested for embezzling over $2 million from her own family charity. And Christopher Wellington, the groom, arrested as an accessory to fraud and facing additional money laundering charges. They showed footage of Victoria being led away in her wedding dress, handcuffed and crying. They showed Margaret's perp walk, her perfectly styled hair disheveled, her Chanel suit rumpled. They showed Christopher looking terrified in the back of an FBI vehicle. The anchor continued. This story has a surprising twist. The investigation was apparently led by Morgan Capital Group, specifically Alexander and James Morgan, CEOs of the multi-billion-dollar investment firm. Sources say the Morgans are brothers of Sarah Morgan, formerly Sarah Wellington, who was recently thrown out of the Wellington estate while 8 months pregnant. Mrs. Morgan gave birth to a premature baby girl 10 days ago at County General Hospital. They showed old footage from 10 days ago. Mrs. Clayton's viral video of me being thrown onto the street. What appeared to be a case of billionaire brothers bullying a struggling family, the anchor said, has now been revealed as a calculated investigation into a complex fraud scheme. The Morgan brothers' public apology last week was apparently part of a strategy to lure the suspects into a false sense of security. The screen switched to an interview with a legal expert. This was brilliant police work in cooperation with civilian investigators, the expert said. By appearing to back down, the Morgan brother gave the suspects confidence to proceed with their plans. The FBI was able to gather additional evidence and execute arrests at a moment of maximum publicity, which will help other potential victims come forward. The anchor concluded, Victoria and Richard Brennan face decades in federal prison if convicted. Margaret Wellington faces up to 15 years. Christopher Wellington's charges are still being determined. Meanwhile, Sarah Morgan and her newborn daughter, Hope, are reportedly recovering well at County General Hospital, surrounded by family for the first time in years. The story cut to commercial. I turned off the TV and looked at Hope. Well, baby girl, I whispered, your first 2 weeks of life have been quite the adventure, but it's going to get better from here. I promise. She made a little sound in her sleep, like she was agreeing with me. The next few days were a whirlwind of legal proceedings that I watched from my hospital room. Bail hearings for all 4 defendants. Victoria and Richard, bail denied. Flight risk, multiple warrants, clear pattern of fleeing jurisdiction. Margaret, bail denied. Financial resources to flee, offshore accounts discovered during investigation. Christopher, bail set at $5 million, which he couldn't pay because all his assets had been seized by the FBI and my brothers held his debts. All 4 remained in federal custody. The trials were scheduled for 6 months out. Federal prosecutors wanted time to build ironclad cases. But there was still one more legal matter to handle. My custody hearing. 2 weeks after Hope's birth, I was finally discharged from the hospital. Hope had to stay in the NICU for a few more days, but she was thriving. Up to 6 pounds now, taking full bottles, breathing perfectly. The doctor said she'd probably be discharged within the week. But I couldn't stay at the hospital anymore. My medical care was complete. I needed somewhere to go. So I moved into my brother's home. Alex and James lived in a mansion in the most exclusive neighborhood in the state. The kind of place that had security gates and private roads and houses so far apart you couldn't see your neighbors. Their house was ridiculous. 32 rooms, indoor pool, home theater, wine cellar, gym, library, more bathrooms than I could count. I told you it was excessive, Alex said apologetically as he gave me a tour. James and I each have our own wing because we're both very particular about our personal space. But we've set up the East Wing for you and Hope. The East Wing was essentially a luxury apartment within the mansion. A master bedroom with an ensuite bathroom that had a soaking tub and a walk-in shower. A sitting room with a fireplace and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gardens. A home office, a walk-in closet, and the nursery. They'd hired professional decorators to set it up in less than a week. Soft yellow walls like I'd wanted, white furniture, a crib that looked like something from a magazine, a changing table fully stocked with diapers and wipes and everything a baby could need, a rocking chair in the corner. Shelves already filled with books and toys. This is too much, I said, tears in my eyes. It's not enough, James replied. You and Hope deserve the world. This is just the start. I settled in over the next few days, preparing for Hope to come home. My brothers had thought of everything. A night nurse for the first few weeks to help with feedings, a baby monitor system that would alert me if Hope's breathing changed, a fully stocked nursery with enough supplies for 6 months. They'd even arranged for a pediatrician to make house calls for the first month. "We want you to focus on bonding with Hope and recovering," Alex explained, not worrying about logistics. 3 weeks after Hope's birth, the family court hearing for custody took place. I sat in Judge Hernandez's courtroom, my brothers on either side of me, facing Christopher across the aisle. He looked terrible. Federal detention didn't suit him. His usual perfect grooming was gone. He wore an orange jumpsuit instead of designer suits. His hair was messy. He had dark circles under his eyes. His lawyer was a public defender. All his money was frozen, and his mother certainly couldn't afford expensive lawyers from prison. My lawyer was one of the best family law attorneys in the state, paid for by my brothers. The hearing began. Judge Hernandez reviewed the evidence. Dr. Ross's medical reports documenting Christopher's attempts to control my medical care. The hospital records showing he'd canceled my insurance while I was pregnant. The testimony from nurses about his refusal to allow visitors. The DNA test proving Christopher was Hope's biological father. And my petition to terminate his parental rights. Christopher's public defender tried to argue, "Your Honor, my client made mistakes during a stressful time. His marriage was ending, he was dealing with a lot, but he wants to be a father to his daughter. He wants visitation rights. He wants to pay child support and be involved in her life." Judge Hernandez looked at Christopher. "Mr. Wellington, you canceled your pregnant wife's health insurance out of spite. You denied her pain medication during labor. You tried to prevent her family from visiting after she gave birth to a premature baby. You showed no concern for your daughter's welfare. You were more focused on control and punishment than on the well-being of a vulnerable infant." He looked at the case files. "Furthermore, you're currently in federal custody facing fraud and money laundering charges. You're looking at minimum 5 years in federal prison if convicted. What exactly do you plan to offer this child?" Christopher's lawyer had no answer. My lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client is asking for full legal custody with termination of Mr. Wellington's parental rights. She's also asking for child support to be determined based on Mr. Wellington's future earning capacity." Judge Hernandez didn't hesitate. "Full legal custody granted to Sarah Morgan. Christopher Wellington's parental rights are hereby terminated. He is to have no contact with the minor child, Hope by Elizabeth Morgan. Permanent restraining order issued." Christopher's face crumbled. For the first time, I saw real emotion from him. Not anger, not defiance. Grief. He'd lost everything. His freedom, his family, his daughter. "However," Judge Hernandez continued, "Mr. Wellington will be required to pay child support once he's released from federal custody and gainfully employed. I'm setting the amount at $15,000 per month based on his pre-incarceration income level." Christopher's lawyer objected. "Your Honor, my client won't have that kind of income when he's released. His trust fund is frozen. His assets are seized. He'll be lucky to find work at all with a felony conviction." "Then he'll need to work multiple jobs," Judge Hernandez said without sympathy. "His daughter deserves financial support. He's her biological father, and he'll pay for her care whether he has parental rights or not." The judge also ruled on the divorce settlement. Wellington Estate, awarded to me. Christopher had inherited it, but given his crimes and the circumstances of our divorce, I was entitled to the marital property. Spousal support, $1.2 million as a lump sum to be paid from Christopher's trust fund before it was fully liquidated. All wedding gifts and jewelry, mine to keep. Medical expenses. Christopher responsible for all costs related to Hope's birth and NICU stay, approximately $200,000 that would be paid from his remaining assets. It was complete financial destruction for Christopher, but I felt no satisfaction in it, just closure. As we left the courtroom, Christopher called out to me, "Sarah, please, can I just say something?" Judge Hernandez had already dismissed us, so there was no rule against it. I turned to look at my ex-husband. "I'm sorry," he said, and he sounded genuine. "I know that doesn't mean anything now. I know I destroyed everything, but I need you to know that I did love you at the beginning, before everything went wrong. before the gambling and my mother's influence and Victoria's manipulation. I really did love you. I looked at him for a long moment. This man I'd married. This man who'd promised to love me forever and then threw me away like garbage. You know what, Christopher? I said quietly. I actually believe you. I believe that you loved me, or at least you thought you did. But love isn't just a feeling. Love is action. Love is showing up. Love is protecting the people you care about. And you failed at all of that. You let your mother manipulate you. You let a con artist seduce you. You let gambling destroy you. You made 1,000 choices, and every single one of them was the wrong one. He started crying, actual tears. I'm sorry about Hope, he said. I'm sorry I won't get to know her. She deserves better than me. Yes, I agreed. She does. She deserves a father who would fight for her, who would protect her, who would never, ever throw her mother onto the street while she was pregnant. You're not that person. You'll never be that person. I turned to leave. Will you tell her about me? He asked. When she's older, will you tell her I existed? I paused. I'll tell her the truth, that her biological father made terrible choices and lost everything, that he's serving time in prison for crimes he committed, that he voluntarily gave up his parental rights. I'll tell her the truth, and I'll let her decide how she feels about it. That's fair, he said quietly. It was the last conversation I ever had with Christopher Wellington. 3 days later, Hope was discharged from the NICU. I dressed her in a soft pink outfit with tiny butterflies. Alex and James came with me to pick her up. The NICU nurses had become like family over the past 3 weeks. They'd cared for my daughter when I couldn't. They taught me how to feed her, how to change her, how to read her cues. She's going to do great, Nurse Patricia said, tears in her eyes. You're going to do great. You're a wonderful mother, Sarah. Thank you for everything, I said, hugging her. You saved my daughter's life. We just helped, she replied. Hope saved herself. She's a fighter. We drove home in Alex's car, Hope secured in a brand new car seat that had been professionally installed and safety checked 3 times. I sat in the back with her, unable to take my eyes off her tiny sleeping face. Welcome home, baby girl, I whispered. Welcome to your real life. 6 months after the arrests, I sat in federal court watching justice unfold. Victoria and Richard Brennan's trial lasted 3 weeks. 7 previous victims testified about losing everything to their schemes. Financial records showed $50 million stolen across 15 years. Victoria's husband from Dubai testified via video about how she'd faked her death to escape their marriage. The jury took 4 hours to reach a verdict, guilty on all 47 counts. Victoria screamed when the sentence was read. 18 years federal prison, $12 million restitution. Richard got 22 years, $15 million restitution. They were led away in handcuffs while I watched from the gallery, holding Hope in my arms. My 6-month-old daughter slept peacefully through it all, unaware that justice was being served on her behalf. Margaret Wellington's trial came next. The forensic accountant testified for 2 days about her embezzlement scheme. $2.3 million stolen from a children's charity over 5 years. Swiss bank accounts. Forged documents. Years of lies. Guilty on all counts. 10 years state prison. Full restitution plus fines. Margaret cried as they led her away. I just wanted to save my family. The judge was unmoved. You destroyed an innocent woman to save your reputation. 10 years. Christopher's trial was different. He'd cut a deal, testifying against the loan sharks who'd funded his gambling addiction. 3 years probation instead of prison, but with conditions. $8 million restitution, all assets seized, mandatory addiction counseling, permanent restraining order from Hope and me. On his sentencing day, he made a statement. I destroyed my life through my own choices. Sarah Morgan is an incredible person. My daughter Hope is lucky to have her. I deserve everything that's happened to me. It was the first genuine thing I'd heard him say in years, but it changed nothing. 3 weeks later came the custody hearing. Judge Hernandez reviewed everything. Dr. Ross's medical reports. Hospital records showing Christopher had canceled my insurance while I was pregnant. His attempts to control my medical care out of spite. The DNA test proving he was Hope's biological father, and my petition to terminate his parental rights. Christopher's public defender tried to argue for visitation rights. Judge Hernandez cut him off. Mr. Wellington, you denied your pregnant wife health insurance. You tried to prevent her family from visiting after she gave birth to a premature baby. You showed no concern for your daughter's welfare. You're currently facing federal charges. What exactly do you plan to offer this child? The lawyer had no answer. Judge Hernandez didn't hesitate. Full legal custody granted to Sarah Morgan. Christopher Wellington's parental rights hereby terminated. No contact with the minor child. Permanent restraining order issued. Christopher's face crumbled. For the first time, I saw real grief. He'd lost everything: freedom, family, his daughter. However, the judge continued, Mr. Wellington will pay child support once released and employed. $15,000 monthly based on pre-incarceration income. The divorce settlement came next. Wellington Estate awarded to me $1.2 million spousal support, all medical expenses, complete financial destruction for Christopher. As we left the courtroom, Christopher called out, Sarah, please, can I say something? I turned. I did love you, he said. At the beginning, before everything went wrong. I'm sorry about Hope. She deserves better than me. I looked at him for a long moment. Yes, she does. She deserves a father who would fight for her. You're not that person. Will you tell her about me when she's older? I'll tell her the truth, that her biological father made terrible choices and lost everything, that he voluntarily gave up his rights. I'll let her decide how she feels about it. It was the last conversation I ever had with Christopher Wellington. 3 days later, Hope was discharged from the NICU, 21 days old, 6 pounds, healthy and thriving. I dressed her in a soft pink outfit and carried her out of the hospital into the bright afternoon sun. Alex and James walked beside me, protective and proud. Welcome home, Hope Elizabeth Morgan, I whispered. Welcome to your real life. We drove to my brother's mansion, where a fully equipped nursery waited. Yellow walls like I'd wanted, everything a baby could need. That night, I held Hope in the rocking chair and sang to her softly, You're safe now, baby girl. You're loved. You're going to have the most amazing life, I promise. She yawned, her tiny hand wrapped around my finger. The nightmare was over. Our real story was just beginning. 1 year after Hope's birth, my life had transformed completely. Wellington Estate was now Hope's Haven Foundation headquarters. The mansion that had been my prison was now a sanctuary for women escaping abuse. We'd converted the guest house into temporary housing for 6 women at a time, built additions with classrooms for job training, therapy rooms, and a childcare center. In our first year, we'd helped 473 women escape dangerous situations, distributed $8.2 million in grants. 142 women transitioned to independent housing. 67 completed job training and found employment. My book, From Worthless to Worthy, How I Rebuilt My Life, became a New York Times bestseller. The $1.2 million advance went entirely to the foundation. I'd been featured on 60 Minutes, The Today Show, and Ellen. Forbes named me to their 30 Under 30 list for social entrepreneurship. I'd spoken at Harvard Business School, the very school where Christopher and Victoria had supposedly met. I walked into that prestigious classroom in a designer suit and spoke about turning pain into purpose. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. But the best part wasn't professional success. It was Hope. At 13 months old, she was thriving. 15 pounds of smiling, babbling joy. She had Christopher's coloring, but my features. Alex's eyes, James's smile. My brothers visited every single day. They'd rearrange their entire lives around being present for Hope. Alex taught her patty cake. James read to her every night, doing different voices. They'd set up a $10 million trust fund for her 25th birthday. She's never going to feel desperate or trapped like you did, James said. We're going to make sure she knows her worth, Alex added, that she's valuable because of who she is, not what she has. The neighborhood reckoning came slowly. I hosted an open house at Hope's Haven 6 months after launch. Mrs. Clayton brought a $10,000 check and homemade cookies. I'm so ashamed. I watched you suffer and filmed it. Can you forgive me? You eventually posted the full video that helped my case, I said. But forgiveness takes time, Barbara. Other neighbors apologized, donated, volunteered. I was gracious, but never forgot who'd helped and who'd watched. Only Mr. Wilson earned my complete forgiveness. I gave him lifetime visitation rights with Hope. He came weekly, bringing small gifts and stories. "You're remarkable," he told me once. "I always knew you were special." "You were enough," I replied. "Sometimes one person is all it takes." Elena Martinez tried reaching out multiple times. Emails, letters, attempts to visit. I blocked all of them. 20 years of friendship destroyed for $50,000. Some betrayals couldn't be forgiven. 18 months after Hope's birth, I did something unexpected. I went back to Wellington Drive. Not to the estate, but to the street itself. I drove my new SUV down the same street where I'd been humiliated. Mrs. Clayton waved tentatively. The Martinez house had a for sale sign. I stopped at Mr. Wilson's house. Hope, now walking and starting to talk, toddled around his garden. "She's beautiful," he said, tears in his eyes. "You're like a granddaughter to me now. Both of you." As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. That street had been my hell for 3 years. But it wasn't anymore. I'd taken the worst thing that ever happened and turned it into something meaningful. I'd built a foundation helping hundreds of women, written a book inspiring thousands, created a life that mattered, and most importantly, I'd given my daughter a future full of love and safety and possibility. The nightmare was over. The real fairy tale was just beginning. 2 years after being thrown out, I stood in an upscale restaurant negotiating a $15 million partnership to expand Hope's Haven to 3 more cities. Hope, now 2 years old, sat in her high chair playing with blocks. Life was good. No, life was extraordinary. And it was only getting better. 2 years after being thrown out on Wellington Drive, I had a power lunch with executives about expanding Hope's Haven to Portland, Seattle, and San Diego. $15 million over 3 years. Hope, 2 years old, sat beside me in her high chair, babbling happily and playing with her blocks. Blonde curls, bright blue eyes, healthy and strong. Nothing like the tiny preemie who'd spent her first weeks in an incubator. "Ms. Morgan," the executive said, "we'd be honored to partner with Hope's Haven. Your foundation has helped over 900 women in 2 years. Your job training programs have a 92% placement rate. Those are remarkable outcomes." Here we discussed details. I reviewed the contract professionally. The scared, naive girl who'd been thrown away was gone. In her place was a confident woman who'd built something meaningful. As the executives left, I texted my brothers that the meeting went well. That's when I saw him through the window. Christopher, he wore a delivery uniform. Quick Bite Delivery written across his back. Worn baseball cap. Carrying takeout bags to an office building. He looked thin, tired, defeated. Our eyes met through the glass. He froze. Saw me in my designer dress, confident and successful. Saw Hope, the daughter who was biologically his but legally wasn't anymore. His face showed everything. Regret, shame, pain, loss. He mouthed 2 words: "I'm sorry." I looked at him and felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, just peaceful indifference. I glanced at Hope, babbling happily, at the $15 million contract, at my life rebuilt from ashes into something strong and beautiful. Then I looked back at Christopher. I mouthed 3 words: "I forgive you." Then, "But I don't need you." He nodded slowly, tears in his eyes. Understanding he'd lost everything that mattered, he turned away, disappearing around the corner. I didn't look back. Hope tugged my sleeve. "Mama, look!" She held up her wobbly tower of blocks. "Wow, baby, you're so smart." I picked her up, breathing in her baby shampoo smell, feeling her tiny arms around my neck. This was what mattered. Not revenge, not proving anything. Just this moment with my daughter. That evening at home with my brothers, Hope fell asleep in my lap during story time. Alex carried her to bed, kissing her forehead. "I have news," I told them. "I'm buying my own house. Hope and I are moving out." They looked hurt. "You've been perfect," I said quickly. "But I need to prove I can stand on my own, support myself and Hope without depending on anyone." Alex was quiet, then nodded. "I understand. When I finally built something entirely mine, I proved to myself I could stand alone. You need that too." But we're helping with the house, James said firmly. Hope deserves a nice home. Would you deny her that because of pride? 3 months later, we moved into our perfect 3-bedroom craftsman house. Yellow nursery, backyard swing set, our own space. On our first night, I tucked Hope into her new bed. This is our house, I told her. Just yours and Mama's. I like it, she said, hugging her stuffed elephant from Uncle Alex. I stood at my bedroom window looking at our yard, our neighborhood, our life. This was mine, earned through hard work and transformation. 3 years ago, I was thrown away, told I was worthless, pushed to absolute despair. And I'd survived, thrived, built a foundation changing lives, raised a daughter who knew her value, reconnected with family who loved me unconditionally. The people who tried to destroy me were in prison. I had everything that mattered: purpose, love, family, hope. And that was enough, more than enough. That was everything. 3 years later, I stood in the White House receiving the Presidential Medal for Public Service. Sarah Morgan represents the best of American resilience, the president said. Hope's Haven has helped over 3,000 women rebuild their lives. Hope, now 5, jumped up clapping. That's my mama. In my speech, I said, I accept this for every woman told she's worthless. You're not broken. You're survivors. You're fighters. You're worthy of every good thing. A reporter asked about my message for people who hurt me. I forgive them, not because they deserve it, but because carrying hate is exhausting. They're irrelevant to my life now. Footnotes, not chapters. And for people currently in abusive situations, I looked at the camera. Leave. You think you can't. You're wrong. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Call Hope's Haven. On the other side of fear is a life worth living. I'm proof. 3,000 women are proof you can do this. The interview went viral. Hope's Haven received 3,000 calls from women seeking help. 10 years later, Hope was 13. Tell me about my biological father, she asked, looking at old photos. His name was Christopher Wellington. He made terrible choices. He signed away his rights when you were a baby. Good. I have Uncle Alex and Uncle James. I don't need anyone else. They love you so much. Mom, when I grow up, I want to run Hope's Haven. I want to help women like you do. Tears filled my eyes. You'd be amazing at it. She smiled. Thank you, Mom, for fighting, for not giving up, for showing me what strength looks like. Thank you for being the reason I fought. You saved me just as much as I saved you. They kicked me out, thinking I had nothing. Now I have everything that matters. They thought breaking me would destroy me. Instead, it revealed me. To every woman who's been thrown away, you're not nothing. You're everything. Sometimes people who break your heart clear space for the life you were meant to live. They don't write your ending. You do. So write it with courage. Write it with hope. And never let anyone tell you you're not worth fighting for. Because you are. You always were. You always will be.